Have you ever seen that video where the guy puts out a single grain of rice to represent $100,000 and then piles them up until he has 10,000 grains of rice? Watching that video helped me understand exactly how much $1 billion really is. But how do you get that kind of money? Well, if history is any example, you get it by doing illegal and unethical things behind the scenes, or sometimes right under everyone's noses. You've probably heard about Elon Musk firing half of Twitter within a few days of purchasing the company, or about his latest great ideas like paying for blue checkmarks, alienating journalists, and messing with Twitter's algorithm to try and sabotage competitors. In case you didn't hear about them, here's a brief summary. Musk is turning Twitter's only authenticity system, the blue checkmark, into a pay-to-play badge. $8 and you can say you're anybody. He also put the government-funded label on news organizations he doesn't like, such as NPR. This makes them appear less trustworthy. But guess what? NPR isn't government-funded. He took the designation back quickly, but not before NPR and other news outlets left Twitter, possibly for good. Perhaps most diabolical, if it wasn't so obvious, the Twitter algorithm briefly hid Twitter's new Substack competitor, Notes. Basically, if you tried to search for Substack or Notes on Twitter, it would redirect you to a Twitter product or other neutral page. None of these schemes worked out very well, at least in the realm of public opinion. That's just on a social media site though. His choices about checkmarks aren't going to lead to people dying. But what about on the highway? Musk became Tesla CEO in 2008. Since then, he's been almost constantly in the news, making big claims about the company's future. Whenever Musk gave a press conference announcing some new big goal, Tesla's stock would go up. This, along with Tesla's majority share of the electric car industry, led to a huge increase in valuation that also increased Musk's net worth, rocketing him into the billions. It's starting to look like many of the impressive results and big ideas touted at those press conferences were, if not lies, way too optimistic. For instance, in 2016, Musk stated that the risk of a crash was 50% lower when using Tesla's autopilot. He didn't cite any references and seems to have made that statistic up. What's more troubling is not that he was wrong, but how wrong he was. An independent study in 2019 showed a 59% increase in crashes after cars installed the newest Tesla autopilot update. Of course, none of that matters to Musk. If Tesla's net worth stays in the billions, $104 billion as of last year. It doesn't matter how much he lies, so long as Tesla stays afloat and the shares keep going up. Musk isn't the only tech billionaire who propped up his company's value on lies and never fulfilled promises. Bill Gates is mostly thought of now as a philanthropist, but Gates and his partner only started Microsoft thanks to a lie. In 1975, he saw an article about a company called MITS. They had a microcomputer, and Gates correctly thought that they were looking for an interpreter, something that could read code, for a popular language at the time called BASIC. He contacted MITS and told them that he had an interpreter that could do just that. They scheduled a chance for him to demonstrate the new software, but there was just one little problem. Gates didn't have it. This story is usually presented as a tale of pluck and daring do, since Gates and his partner quickly put together the product and were able to found Microsoft because of this chance. However, the idea that Gates got to where he is from boldness is a bit inaccurate. Microsoft got its second big break and became a real software company because Gates' mother knew the CEO of IBM personally. Gates was able to form his company because of lies and a favor from mum. Later on, he would violate antitrust laws to keep Microsoft growing, all while complaining about and trying to restrict free exchange of software code. Jeff Bezos is often lauded for Amazon's success, but his first investors were his parents, who gave him $300,000 to get started. He has turned Amazon into a high-valued company, but when 1/10 to 1/3 of your employees rely on food stamps to survive, the government and therefore the rest of the citizens have largely funded this billionaire's success. Even his workers at the Washington Post, which he owns, criticize his poor wages and benefits. More than 400 Washington Post employees participated in an open letter to Bezos protesting his employment practices. While many of his employees can barely afford to stay housed and fed, Bezos bought a luxury super yacht that just finished construction. It cost more than $500 million. We've all come to expect this kind of thing from Silicon Valley, but what about the other billionaires? As of April 2023, the richest man in the world is Bernard Arnault, worth over $200 billion. He oversees a retail conglomerate that includes such well-known brands as Tiffany's, Louis Vuitton, and Sephora. He came from relatively humble beginnings, especially when you look at our first three billionaires, but he's just as ruthless. When he acquired his first company, he was nicknamed the Terminator because of his tendency to fire nearly everyone immediately. but at least those employees he hired and fired were adults. Giovanni Ferrero, owner of the confectionery company responsible for Ferrero Rocher and Nutella, is worth around $40 billion. He is the richest man in Italy. I'm sorry, I'm about to ruin Nutella for you. Most of the hazelnuts used by Ferrero's companies come from farms that use child labor. Ferrero argues that the hazelnuts can't be traced, so they aren't to blame. But then they claim that they use mostly traceable nuts. So which is it? Ferrero blames the farmers for the use of child labor, even forming a non-profit to train the farmers in more sustainable and ethical practices. But who pays for those sustainable practices? The farmers. And they say that it's Ferrero's low wages that make child labor necessary. Clearly, everybody's to blame here, but no one is taking responsibility, least of all Ferrero and his $40 billion. The richest man in Mexico, Carlos Slim, built his empire during the recession in Mexico in the 80s. While most people were losing their jobs and companies were shutting down, Slim jumped on the chance to buy them up. Until he owned almost all of the companies in Mexico. He's worth $93 billion. Let's not leave out the ladies. Gina Rinehart in Australia is worth $27 billion. She inherited a multi-million-dollar mining company and expanded it by mining out Australia's natural resources and selling it to China. A shrewd business move that's rather par for the course. But what's most nefarious about Rinehart is her attempt to confuse and control public perception around climate change. She uses her wealth in Australia to battle even the most moderate climate change policies, forcing Australian lawmakers to back down and make much smaller, less helpful changes. She didn't want to stop at political power though. She wanted to control public opinion as well. Rinehart tried to purchase Fairfax Media, slowly gathering more shares in the company over time and allegedly seeking control through the executive board. She was even accused of trying to take over editorial decisions in the newspaper division. When Rinehart refused to guarantee autonomy, aka the ability to tell the truth to Fairfax, the deal was called off. Instead of staying out of politics, Rinehart began to fund a conservative think tank. Her company is the majority funder for the Institute of Public Affairs, which advocates policies that benefit Rinehart, such as deregulation, abolition of the minimum wage, and even calls for the removal of protections against racial discrimination. And just to round it out with something really depressing, L'Oreal actively campaigns in favor of animal testing, lobbying governments to remove protections for animals so they can save money. Francois Betancourt Myers inherited L'Oreal and is now worth $80.5 billion. If all these billions are starting to sound meaningless to you, let's put it in perspective. It's estimated $37 billion a year could cure world hunger by 2030. It's clear that the richest people in the world don't get that way by doing good things. They get that way by taking advantage of others' trust or circumstances, like lying about your products to improve your company's stock options or using suppliers that you know use underage workers. These people don't follow the usual rules of society. So why should the rest of us? One of the rules that you follow, but they don't, a credit score. It's like a grade that tells you how much you should be trusted by lenders. What does your score mean? How is it really calculated? Click this vid to find out, and find out how you can beat the system like a billionaire.